being that I was a teacher for 6 years in total, 5 years at Garinger High Proud, I know all too well the importance of student assignment. And I know there's a lot of discussion in the community right now about this subject, and it can get kind of complicated. And for a lot of parents out there, they may wonder, why is pupil assignment so important? And what does that really have to do with my child and giving my child the best opportunity at success? So I'm a history teacher, so real brief history lesson. Education has never really been balanced. And when I say balanced, I mean students, depending on where they come from, have never had the same opportunities, not from the very beginning. And even when education was made free and made public, it was separate. The way we conducted business was by separate but equal. And that was the law of the land. Now, the problem with this whole idea of separate and equal is that separate was never equal. As long as the two groups of people were kept separate, then we know inherently that they were not going to be treated the same. The conditions of the schools that white kids during that era went to were superior to the conditions of the schools that black kids went to. And so upon investigating that further, we found that the whole idea of separate but equal was false. Separate is inherently unequal, and that's why you're separate in the first place, to make things unequal. So Brown versus Board of Education was the case that overturned that idea of separate versus separate and equal. And as a result, over the next 20 years, we've kind of worked through a system of trying to integrate schools. And I was a part of that process. I'm 35 years old, and I grew up in early 80s and mid 90s. And I was one of those kids who had a neighborhood school, and the neighborhood school, even that's where all my friends and everything went, it wasn't the same quality. And it's a hard thing to say because it's your neighborhood, and who doesn't want to go to a neighborhood school where you're going to see your friends, you're going to ride the bus, it's not too far from home. There's a lot of things to like about neighborhood schools. But the problem was it was part of a bigger system that we couldn't see. And our schools were not on the same level as the schools across town. And because we never went to those schools and never saw that, we had no idea until a court case came about, and we found out that our school system had been running a very separate and unequal system, one based on race. And I ended up getting bused to the other side of town, and it was a totally different world. It wasn't perfect by any stretch, and it was hard for me to adjust being the only black boy in that setting. But at the end of the day, I received a superior education as a result of that. And a lot of my friends who didn't get the same opportunity, it affected them. It affected their ability to move up. And for me, it gave me a way out. What we're dealing with now in Charlotte is something similar. We kind of already worked our way as a community through integration. That's something that happened in the 70s, Supreme Court case, Swan versus CMS. And for a good almost 20-year period, Charlotte was the picture of how to properly integrate schools. And there are a lot of people, I've learned this from moving here, who went to West Charlotte, who that was not their neighborhood school, or who went to other schools, and that ability for kids from this part of town, from this level of income, to interact with people who look different than them, that made them better. It gave them a toolkit that allows them to go about life with certain skills, with certain qualities that everybody doesn't have when you go to an isolated school. And then around 1999, another case happened, and we stopped doing that. Now, what we're doing now is neighborhood schools. And like I mentioned before, there's a novelty to that. There's an appeal to that. But the problem is our neighborhoods are segregated by race and by socioeconomics. And so when you have neighborhood schools, naturally, what you're really saying is these are segregated schools. But we have before us now an opportunity to correct that with the student assignment plan. Charlotte's one of these school districts that's known all throughout the country. And so people are watching us, and they're seeing what's happening. And you got bright kids all over the place. Where you live, what your race is, what your income level is, has no influence on how smart you are and how capable you are. I would never say that. But it does have an influence on the level of opportunity that you're given access to. And so long as we have isolated schools, these kids don't have the same level of opportunity. I knew that when I was young. I knew that when I was teaching in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, and I know it now. It's about giving your kids, my kids, the best opportunity at being successful. And we all know that starts with education. It's about making ourselves competitive, your child competitive. They're going to have to step out into a world where everybody doesn't look like them, where everybody's not from the neighborhood, where everybody doesn't speak this language. And school helps to give you those tools. But if your school is such that everybody looks like you, everybody comes from the same background as you, everybody comes from the same income level, same race as you, you're not properly prepared to deal with the world as it is. We have to make sure our kids can compete. We have to make sure all kids can compete. And right now, some are prospering, some are given that boost into whatever opportunity that they can dream of, and some are put at a real disadvantage. And it's happening without us even knowing it. And so we have to pay attention to the conversations, we have to get involved and be informed. But most importantly, I think we have to use our voice. Our children depend on us. We're blessed with them, right? It's our job to make sure we cultivate their learning environment, that we help raise them right, and give them everything they need to chase after their dreams. But that can begin and it can end at the schoolhouse. And student assignment is a huge part of that.